Let's do an example where we have a greatest common factor that we have to take out and then factor trinomial. Okay, let's try this one. It's going to look kind of hard at first here. 10 y to the fourth minus 7y to the third minus 12y squared. Now, you get a problem like this, and you're thinking, this does not look like this, form up here, ax squared plus bx plus c, because I got a fourth power and a third power. That's a big tip-off that there's a greatest common factor in here. So I'm looking, I got y to the fourth, y to the third, and y squared. I can take out a y squared, and you really always want to look for a greatest common factor before you start. And in this case, there's no number that's the greatest common factor because there's no number that goes into 10, 7, and 12. But in other problems, there might be, so you want to look for that as well. Alright, so now I'm left with 10y squared minus 7y minus 12 in the parentheses, and so with this trinomial left in the parentheses, I'm going to go do my AC method. Now, if you want to pause the video and try this problem on your own and then come back, that would be a good idea. Try to do it on your own is always a great way to practice. If you don't feel like you're quite ready for that, then you can just keep watching. Alright, so we're going to start off by doing A times C, which is 10 times negative 12. That's negative 120. That's kind of a big number. We'll see what we can do with that. So we want to figure out what adds to be negative 120, or excuse me, what multiplies to be negative 120 and adds to be negative 7. So basically we need to find two numbers that are 7 units apart that multiply to be 120. 120 is a bigger number, so let's just start with something we know that multiplies to be 120, 10 times 12. So 10 times 12, those are only 2 apart. Right? If I added the 10 and the 12 with, remember, one's got to be a positive and one's got to be a negative, the difference would be 2. So we need numbers that are a little farther apart. Let's try 15. Does 15 go into 120? I think that goes in 8 times. 15 times 8. That'd be 80 plus 40. That'd be 120. So the difference between 15 and 8 is 7. So that's going to work. Now I need a negative 7. So I'm going to have to do a negative 15 and a positive 8. That'll multiply to be negative 120 and add to be negative 7. Now, let me give you a little piece of advice here. When you have one positive and one negative, always write the negative first. That's going to make your factor by grouping easier, because when you split your middle term, you're not going to have to worry about taking out a negative. I'll show you what I mean over here. So we'll bring this y squared down. Now, actually, this can get a little complicated. Let's take this y squared out here for a second. Let me show you another way. Let's go ahead and just factor the trinomial, but we can't forget that we've got this y squared here. So maybe to help remind us, we'll put a little arrow down here to remember to bring that down. And let's just factor this. You could use brackets and stuff like that, but sometimes that can get confusing. So let's just factor our trinomial. So we're going to split it apart, the negative 7y into negative 15y. Plus 8y minus 12, and then use your parentheses. Now this is where if you would have put the negative second, you would have had a minus here. Then you would have had to worry about writing plus a negative and making sure that negative was inside the parentheses, because you can't just throw a parentheses in front of a minus, because then you're creating a situation where that minus would apply to everything in the parentheses. So if you have one negative and one positive, put the negative first. That'll make this part easier. Greatest common factor of 10y squared and 15y would be a 5y. So we divide that out and we get 2y minus 3. Plus the greatest common factor of 8y and 12 is 4. Divide that out, we get 2y minus 3. Yay, that's a good sign. When we get these two parentheses to be the same, that makes us feel good. So we write what we have underlined once, and then we write multiply by what we have left, which is 5y plus 4. And we can't forget to bring our y squared with us down here for our final answer. So there's your final answer, y squared times 2y minus 3 times 5y minus 4, and that would be the completely factored form of 10y to the fourth minus 7y to the third minus 12y squared. If you were to multiply all this back together again by either foiling these two binomials and then multiplying in the y squared, or you could multiply the y squared into one of the parentheses and then FOIL what you have, you would end up with this again.